Hello, and welcome back to CRCSD Homeroom. I'm your host, Joe Larson. Today, we're talking about a very important topic, school safety. And I'm very fortunate to have two of our administrators with us, Janessa Carr and Ryals Parker. Great conversation ahead. Looking forward to talking with them both about their day-to-day interactions with schools and safety. Let's get to class. All right. Well, good morning, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, my name is Joe. This is Janessa Carr, as well as Ryals Parker. They are part of our safety team here at the Cedar Rapids Community School District. Janessa, your title exactly, Safe and Secure Learning Environment Administrator. Can you tell me a little bit more what that means or what your day-to-day kind of looks like?
Yes. So what that means is that my role is to help get the district aligned as far as like safe and secure learning environments is. So what that looks like is making sure we have clear established emergency protocols across all of our buildings and really helping us to get aligned when it comes to safety initiatives.
Okay. And then Ryals, Executive Director of Behavior Support. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for you and kind of what your day-to-day looks like?
Yep. So my position has been around. This is the third year of this position. It's created based on a consent agreement we have with the Department of Justice. So most of my day-to-day is around issues of restraint and physical crises in the buildings. However, what I'm fortunate enough to do this year is work with Janessa and our other departments to really look at behavior across all buildings and across the full spectrum and look at all the different things happening in the buildings and figuring out what pieces we need to build an effective system so that we reduce those concerns in buildings.
Fantastic. And so for both of you, and essentially feel free to answer however you like, but how did you get here? How did you get to the Cedar Rapids Community School District? How did you get to your positions? Are you from Cedar Rapids? Just kind of give us your life story.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll give a quick one. Mm-hmm. So yes, from the Cedar Rapids, Marion area. And so I worked in schools my entire career. I graduated from University of Northern Iowa with my bachelor's and Mount Mercy University with my graduate degree. So I've worked in kind of the behavior area of education, the counseling area, and now in the safety area of education. So all education, but really they all the positions prior to coming here has helped really inform what I do today.
Fantastic. Right.
So growing up, I split time between Iowa and Texas, and then I went to the University of Iowa. I started my teaching career here in Cedar Rapids. I actually started as a para while I was finishing up my teaching degree, and then I worked here in the district before becoming an administrator. And then I was an elementary and middle school principal in Keokuk, Iowa. Before coming back, my wife is from Cedar Rapids, and we very much wanted to raise our children here. So I took a job with the district 3 years ago as a special ed director. I served in that role for 2 years, and then this year I've transitioned to this role.
Fantastic. So you both know why you're here. So let's jump into the very light and easy subject that is school safety and school for our children, or safety for our children and behaviors and stuff like that. Obviously, it is a topic that people can be very passionate about and want to know more about. I am a parent of the district, so I know my kid's safety is important to me and what he's going through on a daily basis. In 2025, what does school safety look like? What are some priorities right now as far as making sure that CRCSD schools are safer and just kind of more secure for everybody?
I can obviously answer that question. So I think when I think about school safety and our top priorities, I think about having like established clear protocols in place. We are I think now the third largest school district in the state. It used to be the second, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have over 30 buildings, it's really easy for those buildings to begin to kind of do their own things and create their own procedures. And so the biggest part is making sure that how we respond to emergencies, there's proper protocols in place. So those being clear, those being established, and those being communicated to all stakeholders is the number one priority. I would say second that it's important that staff, students are getting the proper training on how to respond for each of our emergency protocols. And I think when we're talking about safety, our physical safety is a top priority right now. I don't think that's a shock to anyone in the school district. And so we have many, different various levels of safety. I think right now, making sure that we get physical safety a priority, and making sure that we lessen the amount of physical aggression we are seeing in our buildings is key. And then I think most of all, big picture is defining like what is safe and secure learning for our school district. I think there's, lots of research out there, lots of trends on what is most appropriate. I think our big task is making sure that we have a plan that's customized to our needs here in CRCSD. We have lots of unique communities, unique, populations and dynamics. And I think defining what safe and secure learning is for a community is important, and then helping everyone to understand the complexities of that and how we get there. And it really is, it is starting with, we have many things at a time, but I think the first step is making sure that we have like a foundational layer of safety, which is establishing emergency protocols and having those clear and in place. And I know I keep repeating that, but I cannot say that enough for a district of our size.
So what are you telling me is it's very simple. It's not complex at all. Right. No.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. And as you said, there's so many buildings, so many students, so many different communities, and trying to make sure everybody's on the same page, is obviously a large part of that. And then adding on top of that, and for you, Ryals, I would say student behavior. How does that kind of relate into safety? What are we seeing as far as behaviors that have potentially become more of the norm over the last, 2-3 years? Are there any behaviors that we've seen kind of fall off over the last couple of years? What does student behavior look like overall?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say that what we see as far as like when we break down the percentages of behaviors, like how much of our behavior as a district is disruption or defiance, like those percentages have stayed pretty consistent over the past few years. I will say we have seen an increase in some physical aggression. And to be clear, physical aggression can be anything from potentially like a fight to also a child throwing a pencil across the classroom, right, where it might hit or potentially could hit somebody else. So that is a wide range. Right. When we talk about physical aggression. We're not talking about all intense things. But that trend has ticked up, I would say, coming back from the COVID pandemic. We have noticed that trend. So that is something where the work that Janessa is doing, creating clarity around safety procedures, and then also the saying we like to use a lot is high expectations and high support. We have to make sure that everybody in our building, that we have very high expectations for them, and that we're also providing a lot of support. And that's even more important now, coming out of the few years where a lot of people were at home and school looked different. And, there was less, as a parent of 2 small kids, childcare looked different during that time. So we just have to adjust some of the supports and expectations we have for students to get that trend to start to reduce. Right. And what I'll say is we kind of look at, from my lens, a hierarchy, right? So a lot of my work is dealing with crisis calls and restraints, and we've worked really hard to get a big reduction in that number as this year has gone on. So we think of that as the most intense behaviors that we have in our building. And then next to that would be lumping all of our physical aggression categories. We're also starting to see a reduction in that based on the work our buildings are doing. So we started at our tippy top behaviors to try to push those down. Now we're working through the system to get a reduction across all behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of trends, and obviously somewhat of a topic that's been discussed statewide over the last few months, a cell phone ban and policy. What does that kind of look like from your guys' lens as far as implementation, feedback from, whether it's school principals, parents, what does that look like for you guys so far, and just kind of your general thoughts on that going forward?
Well, we do have some buildings who are currently piloting what it looks like to make sure that all students don't have cell phones out during instruction time. So I think we paid attention to what some of those legislative conversations are, and we know that some of that is coming. And so I know one of our buildings are piloting having the cell phone lock boxes. So when students go to school, they turn their cell phone in at the office and it's put in a lockbox. We have some where it's just simply the expectation is that it's put away, and then they have kind of a response plan in place if a student does have their cell phone out. I do, support the idea that cell phones do need to be put away during instruction time. I think they can be a distraction. It does get in the way of learning, and it does, impact safety when we're talking about high level concerns at the middle and high school level. Some of our larger fights are planned with cell phones. Some of our issues surrounding bullying and weapons happen, because of sending things through cell phones, right? And so I think we'll be prepared, this fall when we do have to have procedures in place. I do think there needs to be more conversation around that, so we don't have an exact blueprint of what that will look like. But I do know that we are in support of cell phones not being allowed during instructional time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and 100% to your point, as far as distractions and just all the things that we know that, kids are using their cell phones potentially for today. I think I would agree with you as well. Any additional kind of thoughts on that, Ryals, from a behavior standpoint?
Yeah. So I would say kind of what Janessa was talking about earlier is that we see, especially at the middle school and high school, a lot of the peer conflict that we have starts on social media. And can continue throughout the day, right? Where students are texting each other or putting things on social media even throughout the school day, which does create an opportunity for conflict in our buildings. Whereas if the phones were not accessible during those periods of time, we just wouldn't have that. And it is contributing to some of the issues we're seeing in our buildings. And I think we're looking forward to hopefully getting some more guidance from the Department of Ed around how they would like to see this implemented. And then we can create Cedar Rapids guidance off of that to make sure that, again, we start to become consistent, because we're doing it in certain buildings and it's going well in those buildings. So we want to see that grow throughout the entire district and for it to be consistent, because we have students who change buildings, right? So no matter what building you're in, it should be a similar policy so that all of our families, all of our students understand what it is, and it's not changing from building to building.
Absolutely. Safety is, as far as I would assume, layered. Some things are very simplistic and basic. Some things are very, kind of hierarching or whatever it may be. I think of things like metal detectors. Obviously, some schools have their school resource officers. Mm-hmm. How do all of those things kind of work together, to make sure that something that is very small and basic doesn't become, something that's much more unfortunate?
Yeah, so I think it helps to think of safety as like a continuum. And so when we think about things like metal detectors or SROs, Crisis Go, safety and emergency protocols, anti-bullying initiatives, that all is a part of that like safety continuum and what helps to build that comprehensive safety system. So a metal detector alone isn't going to solve all safety issues, but it's going to reduce the chance that we have students bringing weapons into the building. It also helps because we don't have a lot of adults to check bags, right, every single day. So it's something like a metal detector is a part of that safety system, and it's meant to enhance and to tighten our systems of protection. Same thing with an SRO. An SRO alone isn't going to solve every safety concern, but an SRO will help to tighten and strengthen our safety continuum.
Can you think of any examples where that continuum has kind of has worked as efficiently as it's supposed to, where something was noticed or seen, whether it be from a metal detector or an SRO, and it's gone through the process and worked out?
Yes. I would say we do use at the middle and high school level, metal, handheld metal detectors, right? And so and it's not something we use for every student. It's typically a part of a safety reentry plan. So, if a student has, been caught with, let's say a knife or some sort of weapon, they're able to, still continue in that building at some point. But we're now able to make sure that they are checked right prior to going into the building, prior to going into class. I also, it's been nice, even with our SROs and obviously their connection to the police department. And so there's times where the police department is able to notify, an SRO of something, near the building's able to respond and go into secure, and just having all of those things in place and knowing that we can contact someone to make sure there's a swift response is how our system works together. I think about even our, meetings twice a week with CRPD. That has, been a huge change and shift because it allows us to be proactive. It allows us to get information about maybe conflicts that are going on in the community that our students are involved in, and how we can prevent that from being a conflict in the building. And so that's just, one example of how all of those things work together to, be a part of that like safety continuum.
Absolutely. Question for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Point blank, does school building size matter when it comes to behaviors and safety?
We can talk about that a little bit. So not really. And it depends. There's a lot of factors, right? So with a larger building and more students comes more staff, right? That also allows you to have more staff to help intervene, provide interventions, help with student safety. Whereas some smaller buildings, you don't have a lot of support staff, right? So if there is an incident, you don't have as many people to respond as you would in a larger building. So in that aspect, larger buildings really are an advantage because they just do have more staff around. So when you need to respond, there's more people available. Frankly, what I would put where I see in my data an improvement, frankly, is in our buildings that are newer. Because they are just set up in a way that are more conducive to student safety. Right. Some of our old education's different now, right, than it was 50 years ago. Yeah. Student behavior is different than it was 50 years ago. The way we de-escalate and work with students is just different than it was. So a lot of our newer buildings, if a student is needing de-escalation or some support, the building is large enough where you can separate that student from other students, or you can have students go a different route back to their classroom. Like, they have those abilities in those spaces, where some of our older buildings where all the classrooms are surrounding the cafeteria, right? If you have an issue in the cafeteria when class is going on, you're now disrupting potentially multiple grade levels, and it makes it really difficult to de-escalate a student when there's a ton of other people around. So to me, it's a lot less about the physical size of the building, and it's about how the building is set up. And we see that advantage in our newer buildings. And when we're able to do renovations in some of our buildings, that is a major factor we look at, is just to make sure that we have space available for students to de-escalate. We're able to get students to and from classes through other ways, because when one student or a group of students are maybe struggling, we don't want that to impact other students. So we try to set up our schools in a way where we can do that.
Absolutely. You mentioned it a little bit earlier in one of your explanations, Crisis Go. Explain to all of us what Crisis Go is and kind of how it's going to help the school district.
So Crisis Go is like an emergency alert system. So it allows us to be able to be notified of a crisis just a lot sooner, right, than a phone call. So with the press of a button, a building administrator can notify all of their staff that there's something happening in the building. One of the other great features is being able to take attendance through Crisis Go. Without Crisis Go, a lot of our attendance in an emergency would be just on paper, right? So imagine that we're trying to evacuate students and then also get them to a reunification site to reunify with parents, and we have to rely on paper to know what students we have and which students we don't. With Crisis Go, staff are able to take attendance. We know who checked in. We know their location at the time. We know which students are missing. It would allow us to know, do we need to reach out to hospitals and inquire on if a student is there. Crisis Go also has threat assessments, and that's definitely on down the line. But just lots of just great features where multiple stakeholders are able to look at a situation. And, let's say a principal is dealing with a crisis. I'm able to look and see, the amount of staff who's checked in, and where students are, how many students are missing. So all of those things are just so much more efficient, and they fit, it's 2025, right? And so they just fit our needs, versus, paper is, that's an outdated system to use in a crisis situation.
Yeah, and I know in conversations that you and I have had before, one of the things that I found very interesting about Crisis Go has been when you've talked about like reunification after something. Can you explain that a little bit more in depth, what that kind of means or looks like with Crisis Go being a tool?
Yes. And so the good thing about reunification is that with Crisis Go, we'll be able to communicate with parents on where that reunification center is. When their student happens to be checked in, that parent or guardian will receive a QR code stating that they're able to pick up their student. It will allow us to, staff members from the ELLC to have information on how to run that reunification site. There's just with that, I cannot imagine a reunification situation without Crisis Go because I know how much it would help us. So I don't know if that answers all of the question, but we really need something that we can manage online in an emergency situation.
And Crisis Go, currently a tool that's being used obviously by you and then schools throughout the district.
Yes, every building.
Can you kind of give us a timeline or a way as far as when it will be out to all staff and then when parents can look forward to downloading the app as well?
Yeah. So currently Crisis Go is accessible to all staff in the school district. We cannot mandate that staff have it on their phones. And so if they don't choose to have it on their phones, they do have access in their district issued device. Right now, all of our buildings are using Crisis Go for drills. And so that they can practice, what it is like to receive an emergency notification, what it's like to check in and state if they're safe, if they're not safe, and if they're off site. And then they're also practicing taking attendance with every drill with Crisis Go, so that in the event of an emergency, they know what to do. Another feature that we're using is we have kind of 3 area emergency response teams in the district. Any crisis that happens at a building, principals are using that to communicate with the district what's happening. And so we're now using it to communicate internally when there's an emergency, and we kind of problem solve that way. And then, everyone has their roles on the team. And then, so this fall is when we want to be able to open it up to parents to receive notifications through Crisis Go. They won't necessarily be notified in the middle of so let's say a building goes into hold. Building administrators will be able to send that notification that the building was in a hold, but they're not going to be notified in real time that the building's in a hold, because it could be just that a student broke their arm in the hallway, right? Or a student threw up in the hallway and a building goes into a hold. We don't want to send out notifications all the time for that. But the good thing is that it's just a quick notification in the event of a higher level emergency. And right now, I believe parents are communicating through Campus Messenger, I believe, but they'll be able to be communicated through Crisis Go, and they can just send that with the push of a button in their cell phone.
Okay. And does Crisis Go help as well when it comes to the communication of behaviors for a student and what that looks like from a parent's point of view as well?
Yep, absolutely. So Janessa talked about kind of the hold procedure. So we have some buildings that are really doing an amazing job with utilizing that whenever there is a crisis event. So even just you mentioned a student who broke their arm maybe, or somebody threw up and you want to keep the hallway clear, right, until you can get it cleaned up because it's about to be passing time. Well, if we have even a low level incident where it would make it a bigger incident if we had students passing at that time, or if we had students going, to art or whatever, we can do a hold, and they can do a hold based on specific parts of the building too. So especially in our larger buildings, we can just hold a wing or we can hold a grade level while we just resolve that incident. It might take 2 minutes, might take 3 minutes, right? And then we can release that hold. And that's been a very effective way too, to do that without necessarily having to go over the intercom and do those kind of things, because maybe you only need to talk to this little chunk of classes. You don't need the whole school to hear about something. It's been a really effective tool to just, in situations where students need to be de-escalated, if we can have less people around, it just aids in that. So we can keep other people out of a situation and resolve it quickly and then let everybody go about their day.
Absolutely. Wrapping up here, just want to ask you both to kind of give me your mission statement, manifesto, whatever, kind of school safety and what that means to you guys. It's obvious you're very passionate about what you do. It's a day-to-day thing that you live through, and jokingly at the beginning, obviously, it's very simple and complex. We know it's not. It's a tough thing every day to obviously kind of live in that world. So just a quick, why do you do what you do? Why do you love it? And what do you look forward to, with your role going forward?
I just know that in, working in the, field of safety in schools, ultimately I want it so that students and staff know that they're safe, and that just like parents can send their kids to school without having to worry about that. And I know, when we look at the data of our district, once we get safety, remaining the number one priority, once we get the things that we know should be in place, all kids can learn at high levels and kids can achieve. And so when safety is this big of a concern for people, we know that kids are not learning at super high levels, and we know that staff don't have the opportunity to teach, at high levels. And so ultimately, I know that in helping this system to improve, we're helping kids to achieve at high levels. So that ultimately is what this is about. When you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, humans don't thrive without having their basic needs met. And so safety really is a basic need. And so in helping to improve that, we know that we can help students and staff thrive in our district.
Absolutely.
So for me, the reason I really love talking about behavior and I like this position is as a building administrator, I found that the work I could do that had the biggest impact on student learning was to focus on behavior. Because if you really think about, if you can reduce the behavior in a building, if you can reduce maybe specific behavior incidents for one student, if they're having less behavior, that means they're in class more, learning more, right? So we can't give academic interventions and work on a kid if we can't get them in class, right? Like all those different things, and kind of what Janessa talked about is making sure people feel safe. And once you reduce potentially some stress that comes with that for all students, they're more able to learn and listen and gain those academic skills. So I truly believe that work around behavior gets us the biggest output when it comes to academics and allows our teachers to do what they're trained to do. On the personal side, right, I have 2 kids that are about to be entering the Cedar Rapids School District. For me, what's really important is that we have the tools to our teachers to be able to effectively de-escalate and manage behaviors, because I don't expect for my children to go to school every day and never see a behavior issue, right? I expect them to see other students struggle. They might be the ones who are struggling regulating. I want them to be able to watch adults help students work through that so that they can learn those skills as they get older, right? Because in our world every day, we will encounter people who are dysregulated and who maybe are struggling with their behavior or their mental health. I don't want the first time my children to see that to be when they're 18 at college. I want them to be able to see adults and peers help de-escalate their friends. To me, that's the value of a public school education, right? So that's why I'm here doing this work, is so that all the kids in Cedar Rapids can have that experience.
Yeah, great point. Thank you both. Obviously an important conversation. Happy to talk with you guys today and appreciate it. So the hard part of your day is over. Okay. Test is over. But now we're going to move on to some extra credit. These are just some silly questions. We want to get to know you guys more and who you are. So when people see you out at the grocery store, they can say, hey, I know that person. We can talk a little bit. When you guys do have a long day, and you're headed home, or, you're talking with the wife and it's, hey, what are we doing for dinner? What's your go-to either fast food or like comfort meal? Like, I'm home, I need to eat this. I'm watching 3 hours of Netflix and I'm going to bed. Like, what does that look like for each of you guys?
My go-to would be Reese's and Kit Kat. Believe it or not, like one of the nice things my wife does for me is like randomly, she'll just like buy Reese's and Kit Kats because I love to have those at night. So like that's what I do. Not the healthiest thing, but I enjoy it. And so after a long day, it's normal for me to just enjoy my candy and watch a show and just be simple. It doesn't take much.
Absolutely.
For me.
So Janessa's a big sweets person. I like more of the salty, right? So I would say there are some nights where dinner is like just a giant bag of popcorn and then me falling asleep on the couch. So I would say that's probably my go-to, is just like, I really like Valley Pop, which is like a random thing. I think you can maybe only get it at Hy-Vee, but it's like very good. So it comes in a giant bag. So I'm that dude like walking out of Hy-Vee with like a giant bag of pre-pop popcorn, because that's what I eat when I've had a long day. And maybe I miss dinner with my family. So I would say it's just like a lot of popcorn and stuff like that. Dr. Pepper, stuff like that.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned, second question to you guys, what are you watching when you get home? Like, what's a favorite comedy TV show you're turning on, a movie, just to bring yourself down from the day you've had and laugh a little bit?
I am regrettably a social media scroller. So like typically it's my wife who's watching her shows, and then I'm watching reels and like laughing.
You're just TikTok doom scrolling as much as you can.
And like cracking up some videos and sending them to many people. So
Absolutely.
Yep.
And this is like probably everybody says this, right? I'm a millennial, so I love The Office. So if I've had a rough day, I will watch The Office because that just brings me a lot of comfort because I could probably recite every line, right? So I love The Office. It's probably my go-to. Right now, my wife and I are really into Severance, which is on Apple TV. And I'm saying that because it's Friday when we're doing this. And I was reminded this morning by my wife when I woke up that it's Severance Day. So we have an episode of Severance to get to watch tonight. So I really like that show. It's not a comedy really, but that's my favorite right now.
This is a completely out there question. Do either of you or both of you, when watching something as far as a TV show or a movie or whatever it may be, and you see something that is like school safety related, do you in your head like that is absolutely not even close to how that actually goes on a day? Like, do you call it out in time? Like, you see, okay. I know from like a marketing and advertising and like some of those standpoints, if I see something in a movie, I'm just like, that's not even close to how that's actually done.
Yeah.
Like there's no way. Okay. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Last question for you guys. What are you looking forward to? It is the middle of March here now, springtime ahead. I think it's, supposed to be 75-ish degrees today. Any cool plans coming up for the spring or anything you guys are looking forward to with the weather getting nice?
That's a good question. Just being outside. It felt like a long winter. It's, kind of been pretty cold at different spots and not great weather. So just getting an opportunity to be outside more. I will say, again, on the days where it's hard, it's nice to be able to walk out to your car and have it be warm and have the sun. It's nice to walk out with the sun still shining is really nice. So just enjoying the nice weather with my family is what I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. And same, really just the basics, when you come to work and, I think I speak for anyone who works in public education. You really see, the symptoms of our community, right? And so I think when we, go to work and see the complexities of students and staff struggling, just being able to like take a walk and be in the sun makes a huge difference on those hard days for sure.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, yes. Again, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it wholeheartedly. Again, Ryals Parker, Executive Director of Behavior Supports, Janessa Carr, Safe and Secure Learning Administrator. Safety is a big topic. Obviously, it's something that's going to change daily. So, as we continue to talk about it all, hopefully we see you guys again on the podcast soon to bring up stuff for the 2025-2026 school year and Crisis Go rolling out and everything that we can do to support you guys. So thank you very much.
As we continue our work together, let's remember the 5 E's of CRCSD. Everyone equipped, empowered, and engaged to excel. It's through these values that we grow and thrive as a district. Before we go, don't forget to check out some of our other exciting podcast episodes, such as The Future Ready Today, released every Friday, where we cover important topics from the district newsletter. And as always, you can follow us for more information on all of our social media platforms.
Thank you so much to my guests, Janessa and Ryals, today on a fantastic conversation about school safety, what that looks like for the district, and new things rolling out in the future like Crisis Go, and how parents are going to be able to communicate with the district when things are going on. Thank you for listening. This is CRCSD Homeroom. Class dismissed.